The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. And with that reading, we'll take a class.
Hey, Brother Larry. Carl's not here, he's sick this morning.
You may need a book.
I'm gonna trade him off.
You getting how many books? Okay. All right, that's fine, brother. That ain't no problem. No problem.
I'm trading for a dog.
Okay, the name of today's lesson is A Twofold Revelation of God. Key verse again. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. Lesson objective. To compare God's written revelation to his revelation of himself in nature, to treasure God's written word, and to obey God's word. Introduction. Psalms 19 is important because it compares two ways in which God has revealed himself to mankind. Historically, these are known as general and special revelations. General revelation refers to God's revelation of himself in creation. Special revelation is God's revelation of himself and his will in the Bible as the inspired and inherent Word of God. Some key questions arise. What is the purpose of each? What is the relationship between the two? What part does each play in faith? It is important to understand these questions because one's answers greatly affect the practice and confirmation of our faith. Of course, we said that the first one will be the general revelation. David said there, we got to remember now, David, he said there, he was a shepherd boy. When it all started out, he was on the side of the hill working, you know, and I sort of looked at it. Most of our kids today,
do you know which one it is?
David, we barely can knock them off couch. The longer sit there to turn them out to do what?
Which one it
And he
is.
was looking over a herd of sheep.
I don't see it
That's
on
a
here.
great responsibility.
I don't know which one it is.
Because, you know, whether it be day or night,
lapel?
you know, they had lions and all that stuff.
Podium
to come
mic,
in,
right?
and wolves
G.
and all that to come in to get the
G?
sheep. And he didn't protect them, did he? So, you know, he was real good at it. Because he had slaves out there.
It's going away.
And evidently could use it well too, because we know that other lesson.
Could it be
The
some
word
over here?
that
He might be still back
giant
there.
later in his life. But anyway, David sat there and he had all the time in the world. You know, when you're laying around, and that's why I always say that most people, I really believe that most people, God has got the best opportunity to dealing with you whenever it is the quietest time. Like maybe in the middle of the night when you're laying in the bed. And he's convicted your heart where you sit there and you really start thinking about Jesus. It's usually when it's quiet. Now you get a whole bunch of people together talking and all of that going on. And you know, he doesn't have an opportunity to where he can really talk to you. Yeah. But he sat there and he had all the opportunity because here he was, what time, you know, he wasn't having to protect any of the sheep. He had a lot of laying around time. He sort of kick back, you know. And you imagine in the middle of the night and some of the clearest nights if you've been out, and every one of us has been, the clearest nights that we can imagine when you're laying outside and sit there and you're looking at the stars. And it is magnificent. In October, the reason I know this, because I didn't know it until I was working on the road drilling. In October, it seems like that's the clearest time they are. I don't know why, but you sit there and you can see shooting stars through that period in October. And they ain't as uncommon as you think they are. They shooting stars about every night. So if you never stay up all night long, sit there and go out and go back out on top of strip job somewhere or something, and just sort of kick back and sit there on the lounge or something and just watch it. Because it's something to see now, but you don't just see, one or two or something. They know a whole bunch of them out there. But anyway, he had all of this stuff he had to be able to lay around and look at. And he had to have in his mind the same thing that we have. Everyone else has sit there and seen something beautiful, magnificent, been on vacation and seen something, and you just sit there and really, you just stop at that minute and you realize just exactly how awesome God really was. Because I mean, when we go down to the Gulf of Mexico and to look at that water and the vastness of it, whenever the first time I was down there, I thought, my goodness, man, that's a big whole water down there. And it's the prettiest water you've ever seen right up against the shoreline. And plus the sand's white. Let me show you, I was just a naive old little old country boy. I thought they hauled that sand in here now. Yeah, I just thought, anything that white, it couldn't have been made. But then once I realized that it actually does come out of the Gulf of Mexico, that to believe that, think about how white that is compared to the rest of the beaches, how awesome God really is. Because, you add that white to that emerald colored water, and it is beautiful. It really is. And we sit there, and we got, like our mountains here, I've said before, you said we got these mountains here, well, we're all taken for granted. We're so used to them, we get up right in the morning, we really don't realize how pretty they are. But in the following year, there's certain places, even around here, that you'll get in, and all of a sudden, it'll dawn on you. You'll see something that's unique or something that draw your attention. Man, you look at it and say, man, that is pretty good. But most times we take it for granted, don't we? If you have so many people travel from away from here just to come and see our foliage in the fall year. And so, when you start putting the vastness together of what he's created, look at all of our oil, gas, timber, everything that he's created. The rest of the world struggled way before Eastern Kentucky did. Eastern Kentucky has just now recently started struggling financially. The rest of this country started struggling 6 or 7 years before we did. So the reason why we wasn't struggling because of the very fact of what God had given us. Back early in our time, we said there in 1920s and 30s, we didn't have anything here. Daddy sat there and they talked about what was here 4 or 5 years ago. We went through a depression, allegedly. He said, I just don't understand where they get that we went through a depression. He said, I lived in a depression. He said, I lived in a time where we took one tater and made 5 meals out of it. He said, because that's all we had. He said, if we hadn't raised that tater, we wouldn't have had a hit. So, it wasn't. He said, I lived in a time of depression. Is the fact that you ain't got nothing. So, but he said, well, he said, we lived in a depression, during a depression time, and we wasn't depressed because we didn't have nothing to be depressed from. We had lost nothing. People had stuff during the depression, all of a sudden they didn't have it. So they got depressed, didn't they? But now, they said, we went through here, this and here the other day, they said, I don't understand that. He said, you still get food, you still get gas, you still get all that stuff that they're talking about we're supposed to be depressed. They wasn't depressed, they're spoiled. We've been used to having anything and everything we want. When we want, not when we need it. So God didn't answer that prayer, did he? So he's going to only give us what we need. He don't give us what we want. So, we sit there and times get hard. You can't see somebody sit there and be financially and just pour it by credit. But guess what? They'll have a telephone. Huh? Yeah. Hey, they'll have all that stuff. They won't cut back on that. Ain't no shame on us. Now, we as people, we think that that is important. That ain't important. What in?
Welfare Cadillac.
Yeah. Well, people, we still have material things that we put higher than anything, even food on the table a lot of times. We shame on us for doing that. But here David sat there and he had to go through, he sat there and we got to look at think about the Milky Way. That's our galaxy here in this country, in the world, in our earth. And we said that we take it all, oh man, they sat there and it's so beautiful, all the stars that we said, well, guess what, that ain't the only one. That's just the one that we fully recognize. The universe is so far and past what we can even think about. You know, because they even found another planet now that's farther away than Pluto. So Pluto's not part of the way. So, you know, we sit there, we have only scratched the surface as far as that goes about exploring space. Don't know why we are, but you know, somebody seems like they think that we need to. I don't understand that because quick enough this is going to be gone. Why do we want to get on another and then cause him to destroy it too? Because that's what it's going to amount to. Because as long as human beings got anything to do, it looks like we're going to destroy anything that we could. We have not been a good, in Genesis it tells us to be a good steward of the land. We have been a good steward over our own family, let alone the land. Because we didn't sit there, I wasn't concerned about that when I was young, but God knows I wish I had been. But I was worried more about what I could do to have fun and what I could sit there and work. That's all I was worried about. Now I know if I worked, then I was allowed to have what fun I wanted to. Shame on me. I was raised a family. Not one time, I'd get out, I'd go to church with them because my daughter said that when me and her mother got divorced, we'd get I'd go to church at special time, Christmas, you know, especially like Easter, you know, times where everybody else, we see the church fill up. You know, that's when people think they need to go. No, you need to go every Sunday. You need to go every time the doors is open. But I didn't have no sense to know that. But whenever I did get the sense to realize it, man, how shameful that I was that I raised my kids like that. Because David sat there, he seen how far the material, he was just looking at the things that he could lay hands on. Okay, he was looking at the beauty that he's allowed us to have. Now, understand this, we only using it. We don't own it. You may pay taxes on it, but it ain't yours. So you are not paying it with you when you leave. Somebody else is going to get that and they're going to get to pay taxes on it. So you don't really own this as much as you think. And even money, all that stuff, all these things that we got here, these material things that we got, they're leaving. Because when you leave, they stay here. You ain't taking none of them with you. But guess what? You got that, think about the place, if this is this pretty here, what's the next place going to look like? We can't even fathom, you know, we read and tell about golden streets and all of that. We can't fathom on how beautiful that, if we think this is, imagine what that's going to look like. You know, we sit there, we got to get there. You know, a lot of people sit there and they think, well, I'm saved, I come to church, I do all these things, but I get out during the week and do whatever I want to. Well, you got better get a broad of think on your mind. You got something, you need to straighten that part out with God. You need to come back to the altar and pray again. Because he ain't going to allow no shit to going on. If you believe that you can do anything you want to, and then just come in, we ain't Catholic. And I don't believe no man, I don't believe Brother Ed can sit there and come up there and say, hey, it's all right, son. I'll forgive you. He can't forgive me for nothing. He can lead me to repentance, but he can't forgive me for nothing.
Well, I can forgive you, but it won't do you no
That's
good.
what I do. It might make me feel good here, but it ain't gonna make me feel good over yonder because I ain't gonna get over it. So, you know, sometimes we think that a preacher, Brother James, the choir, one of them sit on the toes whenever they're preaching. Well, guess what? You better have stopped on there once in a while. Well, do you want to go to heaven? But sometimes you need a good whooping to make sure you're going to get there. I'd rather take a little whooping right here as him to tell me to depart from me. I know all of you work for iniquity. As to sit there, if he does a little bit at a time here, maybe he's getting straightened out before it comes time to me go over yonder. But now he sits there, and you don't have to love him, but now somebody wants to scratch your ears. They just want to tell you what you want to hear. So you put a little bit more into play. Or you'll sit there and the rest of the holler will come in and we'll fill his church up. It'd be a shame and disgrace, wouldn't it, have a church full of people going to hell. But we got a lot of money in the bank. Got all kind of money. Guess what? Remember what I said a minute ago? You ain't taking a week. And the rapture come next week and you had $300,000 in the bank, what good is it gonna do? He stay here and y'all gone anyway. Well, it'd be a shame, wouldn't it? When we could be out there using this money to help people. Not that we've got 300,000, mind you, because we sort of think. But anyway, practical application. The product of the craftsman says a lot about the craftsman. Know God more fully by studying His creation more carefully. You know, where you sit there and you start realizing all of these beautiful things that you look at is made by God. You know, the computers you pick up, there's nothing inside the covers of that computer that's not made by God. It's all His. It's like that joke where he sat there and Satan sat there and said, well, there ain't nothing you can do that I can't do. He sat there and he said, well, God said, well, I'll make man. He said, well, I can make man too. He reached down, picked him up a handful of dirt, and God said, hold, wait just a minute. You use your own dirt. So, you know, Satan can't do everything God. So all of this belongs to him. We're just using it. That's why he told us to be what? Good stewards of it. You know, because he expected this to last for a long, 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 long time. Now, evolution come into effect, and here all our wonderful scientists, they come into effect, and they said, therefore, you got to understand, they work for money. It's really worked that. The scientists don't do this because he sat there and he just had a dream that God put on his heart one morning and said, you need to tell these people up here. No. He sat there and he does these studies and all this stuff for the fact that he gets paid to do it. You take his salary away and see how long he worked at it. Now, some people love it, okay? And there's some good things that come from all the time. But guess what? Everything that's good about science, the Bible backs it up. Okay? But if we sit there, we've got people that sit there, evolution, that sit there, people say, well, you come from monkey. I was in a basic training with a boy, this dad put on his dog tags, he was an atheist, and he was going to Vietnam. And I said, well, I'm not a Christian. I had Baptist put on mine. So I know even back then, if I was ever going to do that, I was going to be a Baptist one day. But he sat there and he had on his, and he was. I said, how do you get that? He sat there and he said, well, he said, I said, how do you, he said, no, I'll believe in God. He said, man come from monkeys. I said, well, don't believe that. But I said, okay, where'd the monkey come from? Well, he said there, he said, that was the Big Bang Theory. And even our lesson talks about that Big Bang. And that could have been it. Now, mind. You know, don't rule that out. Because God could have made a Big Bang, and that's when the evolution started. So don't rule that out. That could have happened. Because it had to start somewhere. Okay? All right, he said there, he said, wait, the Big Bang Theory, two dust particles billion miles apart, set light years apart, cut forever to get together, they hit one another and exploded. Well, I said, don't believe in that, because I didn't know then, I probably know now. And I said, I don't believe that, but I said, where did the two dust particles come from? Any way you want to figure it out, something created something. Even the scientists understand if it was a Big Bang Theory, something caused the Big Bang.
God said it, bang, it was there.
That's right. I mean, whether he wanted to be a bang or not, he said it was there and it was good. That's the best part of it. Everything he done, what he even told himself, and it was good. In the Word, he told us it was good. And so everything that he's made has been good. Now, everything that we've done with it a lot of times has not been so good. But now look here, even strip mining. Now, way back when they first started strip mining, they didn't know no better than to push the dirt over the hill. They wasn't doing it because they didn't care nothing about the land. They just figured that was the quickest way to get to where they could mine the coal. It wasn't that they was doing anything so bad, but what did we do? We kept learning from that. We sat there and now we put it back to within, 2% slope or something of the original contour of the land. So it's a pretty good thing. And they said, you go back to some of these old strip jobs where they shoved it over the hill. You don't even know there's a strip job now because they growed up and got trees on them. Because this goes back. And you know, these that we got today, if they would plant the right trees, and it'll take 20, 30 years, but it'll grow back. But they sit there and they wanted, you know, we had people way back in time, they had all of this figured out. They just sat there and said that God might have been part of it after the fact. He didn't create nothing. They didn't want to give him recognition because if they did, they'd have to go look for a job. Fact is fact now. If they would have given in to the fact that Jesus, that God created the world, the universe, everything, then they would have to change their whole way of thinking. That's like global warming. Well, it may be, but guess what? It did one time before too, did it? What happened during the ice age? Why did all the ice melt? Think about it. The miracle God wanted to. And it said there, because the dinosaurs, they all had to leave you one time. I want to show you, I think it's history or something over there on the History Channel, talking about the dinosaurs. It could have been parasites and disease and all that. I don't believe that. I believe we had an ice age that they sat there when the big flood come, they all grounded like everything else. There wasn't, the things that wasn't on that ark left here. They just didn't have a chance. Other than the ones that was in the sea, you know. Think about that. And, if the ones in the sea are still there, there may be some still floating around in there. There's some deep water out there. We don't know what's in the bottom of it. But if you believe in creation, and you believe, you look outside and you understand that all of this stuff that was created came from God, how could you not believe that Jesus Christ exists? I mean, he'd sit there, and now you come to the other part, the special part, where you got the inherent Word of God. What did he give us? A roadmap. The Old Testament is to show us how it got to be that Jesus had to come. Okay? That's the only reason he wrote the Old Testament for, to show us that it wasn't working. That the sacrifice, that the way they had it laid out wasn't real. It didn't happen. It didn't help. Because you was making a sacrifice for your whole family. Well, little Johnny may be the meanest youngin' on the face of the planet, but here you was going in and making a sacrifice for him. And little Johnny didn't want no sacrifice. See what I'm saying? So that sacrifice really didn't mean a hill beat. But now when Jesus Christ come into the picture, and he come in for the sacrifice, what? For the whole world. That was from the time he comes till whenever he comes back to get the church. That's for the unborn children that hasn't even got here yet. He died for their sins. Well, when he said he died for mine and he told me that he forgive me of my sins, he cast every one of them in the most outer darkness. Now, he's still making excuses for me every day of messing up. I hope and pray my most mess up is that maybe I talk about somebody every once in a while. And that's probably, I hope that is the worst I do. Now, I'll have a slip of the tongue every once in a while or something, or get mad or something, or blow up or something, not very many times. But when I do, then I sit there, guess what? He chastised me, tells me that's why I've done wrong. If you ain't never been chastised, you need to go back and come back to the altar and ask God to help you. Because ain't no human on the face of the planet ain't never messed up. It ain't gonna happen. You're gonna mess up. If you breathe air and you walk around and you get out in this world, you understand the world's still right there outside these walls. When a Christian goes back into the world, you go back around the people that I used to hang with and put me in that position and leave me there long enough, they'll rub off on me. Best you can do. So guess what? I don't hang around with them. I try to steer myself away from the point that I want to sit there and do that. But he sat there, and when we take the sun, I mean, a lot of people sit there and say, God, it's too hot. Oh, it's too cold. We pour about it. We're always talking about all the bugs come up there. Too hot, too wet, too dry, all that stuff. And I can't be satisfied with too hot. But then when you start taking consideration, let me tell you something a little bit about the sun. The sun provides the earth with light, heat, and energy. The sun's radius is 109 times larger than the radius of the earth. The average temperature of the sun's surface is 5,700 degrees. The earth's average temperature, now this earth, is 20 degrees. So they average this out the whole year's time to come up with a 20 degree deal. The sun is 150 million miles away from the earth. The sun rotates on its axis once every 26 days. The sun is a perfect size age, distance, temperature, and brightness for life to exist on earth. What do these facts reveal about God? I mean, think about this. He knows exactly how big the sun had to be. He knows exactly to the mile how many miles that it needed to be away. How many times did it need to turn? Before now if it stayed daylight all the time, everything would burn up. All right, everything, well, he got it. I mean, think about how God's plan come out here. He laid it out perfect that it would work exactly right. But now you let me have a whole day. Well, I hit the sunshine all the time. So I'd be working, but I said, well, let rain tomorrow, or let rain tomorrow, or let rain tomorrow, and everything would burn up. Because, oh, I'm always going to be busy doing this, doing this, doing this. Now when it rains, now I'm not near as bad doing that because I realize the fact that we got to have water. The Lord knows that. Now, all of these storms, if we believe that, and all of these storms that exist, we got to understand, has to be existed from God. Okay? Now, I believe they're getting worse. We got diverse conditions. I believe they're getting a little worse to get our attention. Maybe we'll straighten up. But there ain't been many hurricanes ever went into New York City yet. So he sat there when one did, look here, his dad saved that place up there. And it was just what was it, one? It was just not a very big hurricane at that. And you think about it, what if the 3 went in up there? I don't know if that big building stand. Really, I mean, or a 4, a big hurricane. But here, a 1, just a 6. Now think, they take 2, 3, they don't even pay much attention to it. 1 or 2 down there in the Gulf. You know, it raises the water up and does all of that. So they got most of that stuff anymore. They got it elevated up to parking areas and all that, because where the water is really just going through. People, I don't know, I guess they're getting used to flooding or something, so houses flood, they move, take care of it. But when you think about how God's plan, He put all this stuff together. For the sun to go around, for us to have daylight and dark and all of that. But remember, whenever I walked the 4th day, He sat there when He created the sun. But right there at the first, He said, let there be light. That was my best thing, that was Jesus Christ. He was the light of the world then. Because whenever He died, what He did, got back dark again then. And then whenever He comes back, what are you going to see? A bright light. Everybody, and it's going to be so bright that everybody's going to see Him come back. It's going to be pretty bright then. Even brighter than the sun, because you're going to be able to see it in the daylight. If it's daylight here or daylight or dark, whichever it's going to be, you're going to be able to see it. So He is the light of the world. He still is, and thank God He is, because He's in control of this thing. It's all His now. Dad told him, said, here, son, you take care of this.